Okay, adding and subtracting rationals. So to add and subtract fractions, you have to have a least common denominator. So we're going to be working on finding LCD with rational expressions. Okay, so first of all, here's kind of the steps to do these. So you got to identify your least common denominator. And then you want to multiply by factors of 1. So whatever part is missing from the denominator, and you'll multiply numerator and denominator. That's what it means by factors of 1. And then you'll add or subtract the numerators. If we subtract, we have to distribute. And then finally, simplify the lowest terms. So if I look at this first problem, I need to find the LCD. So let's just take it one piece at a time. So between 16 and 2, what's the least common denominator? 16. So with least common denominator, that's least common multiple. You want the bigger one because you have to make sure it's all covered. All right, what about between y and y squared? Y squared. So factoring, if you were factoring, you would just want a y and the 2. But since we're finding the multiple, the least common denominator, we need the bigger one. We need to make sure it's all covered. So 16y squared. So for my first fraction, I have 16y. How can I make 16y squared? What do I need to multiply it by? Y. Okay? And I have to make sure that the value doesn't change, so I multiply by factors of 1. So y over y. Okay. Over here, what do I need to multiply to the 2y squared to get 16y squared? 8. Okay? Well, you remember, multiplying fractions, multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. So 15y over 16y squared minus 7 times 8 is 56 over 16y squared. And subtract across the numerator, so I'm just going to do that step together. Okay? Are 15 and 56, are those 15y and 56 like terms? Are those like terms? No. Can you factor anything out? No. So this is done. Okay. All right, let's look at another one. Taking it one piece at a time. So between 6 and 9, what's your least common denominator? What's the smallest thing they both go into? 18. All right, what about your A's? A cubed and A. A cubed. And your B's? B cubed. Good. All right, what do you need to multiply 6 by to get 18? 3. What do you need to multiply a cubed by to get a cubed? 1. so nothing there. What about b to get b cubed? B squared. Okay. What do you need to multiply 9 by to get 18? Okay. A to get a cubed. Good. And it already has b cubed, so we're good there. So let's multiply. 3 times 3b squared is 9b squared. Over my LCD. 5 times 2a squared is 10a squared. Okay. Once you have a common denominator, add the numerators. Are these like terms? 9b squared and 10a squared? No. So you just have to write them next to each other. Is there anything you can factor out from the numerator? No. Yeah. Good. Questions so far? Yeah.
You can't factor it out because it's plus. Is there plus sign in the middle?
Well, and 10 is not a perfect square. So if this were 9b squared minus 100a squared, then you could do difference of squares. Yep. Okay, let's write this one down, and then we have to do just a little bit of manipulation here to get this to factor. Okay, so this is not in the proper order. It is difference of squares, but I want to write it in the other order. So just as we look through this, if I rewrite this, that's negative p squared plus 4, correct? Okay, well I want the difference of squares, so I want this to be p squared minus 4. I'm going to just cross that one off. I want this to be p squared minus 4. So I'm going to multiply this first one by negative 1. Okay. And this is just to rewrite this so it's easier for me to factor. So I have negative 2 over p squared minus 4. Before I can identify my least common denominator, I have to factor my denominators. So I know this p squared minus 4 is difference of squares. That's going to factor to p plus 2, p minus 2. Right, Ryan? Okay. Minus p over p minus 2. All right, remember when there's an expression, a plus or a minus, it has those invisible parentheses around them. Okay, so for my least common denominator, I have to make sure every part is covered. So I know that I have to have a p plus 2 and p minus 2, because I have to make sure this denominator is covered. Okay. If I look at my other denominator, that's p minus 2. So I'm all right. I'm covered because I have a p minus 2. So my least common denominator is p plus 2, p minus 2. So my first fraction is missing what? Nothing. It has both of these. What's the second one missing? P plus 2. I have to make sure I keep that in parentheses. So the whole thing comes together. And what I have to do is I have to distribute the P. Now when I go to distribute the P, I have to be careful because it's actually a subtraction. So what I'm going to do, just to make it easier so I don't forget that that's a minus P, I'm going to make that plus and then move my negative up here with my P. And then I will distribute. So I'm going to go ahead and copy just this first fraction down. It doesn't matter the order that you write these factors. P minus 2 times P plus 2 is the same thing as P plus 2, P minus 2. Okay, so now I have negative P squared on top minus 2P. All right, let's go ahead and add. Do I see any like terms? No. So I have negative 2, well, let me write it in standard form. I have negative P squared minus 2P minus 2 over P plus 2, P minus 2. So the simplifying part is trying to factor if possible. So first of all, I'm going to factor out a negative 1 from the top because it's hard to factor when your P squared is negative. So I'm going to factor out a negative 1 from the top. And then I want to check to see if this factors. So I would just do that to the side because if it doesn't factor, like this one, it doesn't. You'd have to go back and erase your last step. So if we just look to the side, okay, you have to use factors of 2, so you have to use 1 and 2, and the only thing you're going to get is 2. Or, I'm sorry, the only thing you're going to get would be 3P, not 2P. So it doesn't factor, so we're done here. You don't have to if you can tell that this wasn't going to factor. But if it does factor, you need to factor it because there's a possibility that it could end up factoring and then canceling out one of the factors from the bottom. So I don't have to do any manipulation of I'm in the OK form here, so I don't have to do like what I did on the last problem by multiplying by negative 1. I don't have to do that here. Let's factor our denominator first before we can find LCD. Okay, plus 4. So I'm going to kind of work through this a little bit fast. Just because I want to make sure we get to our next example too. Stop me if you have any questions. Okay, I have to make sure all parts are covered. So I know that I need a 3 and I know I need an A plus 4 because that's the first one there. Well, the second one has an A plus 4 already. So the A plus 4 is covered, but I need an extra A. I need an extra A. So 3A, A plus 4. That's every piece covered. You guys okay with that? 3A, A plus 4. So this one is just missing the extra A. one is just missing the 3. So I get negative 2a over 3a, a plus 4, minus 21 over 3a, a plus 4. The negative 2a and the negative 21 aren't like terms. You can factor out a negative. That's the only thing that would factor out here is the negative 1. So we're fine here as our answer. But you might see it like this. So if you factor out the negative 1, that's 2a plus 21. And then your book might pull this negative out to the front. So you could also see it like this. Where they move that negative out here. Yeah?
If you didn't factor out the negatives.
No. No. It's only going to be wrong if it were to factor more. Because you have to check to see if it factors to see if anything cancels. Like if you could have factored out a 3, then you'd want to do that because it could cancel the 3 down here. I just wanted to do it on this one because it's hard to factor if that's a negative. So to see if it'll factor, I wanted to pull that negative out. I'm going to kind of keep an eye on the time here. So I'm going to work through it kind of like I just did on the last one. So stop me if you have any questions. I'll talk through what I'm doing. So let's factor our denominators first. I'm going to go ahead and put parentheses around my numerator just so I remember that that m plus 2 is stuck together. Okay, so least common denominator. Well, I need m plus 5, m minus 5. They have 1, m minus 5 in common, but this one has 2. So to make sure this whole denominator gets covered, I have to add another m minus 5. All right? There's 2 m minus 5s here, so I have to have 2 here. So my first my first fraction is missing an m minus 5. My second one is missing the m plus 5. Now,
Is it blue? Is it m plus 6?
oh yeah, thank you. You're going to work it fast. M plus 6. Okay, so to do my multiplying in the top, now the bottom, leave it in factored form. And the top, you have to multiply these. So to multiply two binomials, we use FOIL. Okay. All right, so that's m squared minus 3m minus 10. I'm just going to write LCD for now. I'll put that back, but save us some time. And then I get m squared plus 11m plus 30. Okay, subtract. Now, it's subtracting, so I need to distribute that negative. Don't forget. I'm going to write it all out in one. Oh, the bell's getting ready to ring. So, If you need to pack up, pack up. These will be posted online. I'll finish it. So my m squares cancel. I'll combine like terms. I get negative 14m minus 40. I can factor out a negative 2. So if you do this just to help save work, that's fine. But in your final answer, you need to actually write it out. Nothing cancels. Those of you that have bits on your form, please don't forget to
That's completely true.